It is time for the World Championship version of the Bob Ryan Just Go Mid-Tangway Along for the Ride pod here on CLNS, brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prize Picks. Bob, before we get going, you got to stand up. You got to show the garb. You got to show what you're wearing. You get your media pass. You get the shirt, whatever it takes. There you go, Bob.
This was a shirt I scarfed up last night. They were giving them out. I grabbed one, and it says, "Yeah, whatever it takes." This is the emblem of the 2024 champions.
Well, Bob, you were there last night, so why don't you just tell us about it? What you saw?
It was a celebration. It was a coronation, as it turned out, and it was a celebration. The crowd has been great throughout the playoffs, and the whole atmosphere of the Garden is so different than it was in years past. This group of fans, this generation, and I'd say including the people who were the fans for the championship 17. This is their team. This is, all the other stuff is like ancient history, and this is their team, and these people, these younger people, because it's a predominantly young crowd of generations X's and Z's and so forth, they're good celebrators. The Garden beforehand, that atmosphere is unlike anything I'd ever seen. Afterward was completely crazy, chaotic. Blocked off Causeway Street, blocked off Canal Street, all the side streets. I had to figure out a way to get back to my car up in Central Plaza. The highlight, I had a laugh. I got to an intersection of Haverhill Street, couldn't get through it, and they were singing "Sweet Caroline," and so good. And it was just so much fun to be there. And the team gave them an appropriate clinching game, no stress, wire to wire. That's good. This registered. It was wire to wire. They never lost the lead. 1 point at one point. I think it was 15-14. And then they ran off the end of the first quarter. And it was no stress ever in this game. And of course, but the absolute, I can't say cherry on the sundae, but except it was the premature cherry on the sundae when Pritchard, I saw him come in. I said, "Oh, we know they want to try to give him the ball. 4 seconds to go, ball out the other end." I mean, you can't make this S blank 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 up. You can't. That he did it again. He did it. This will list test of time. I guarantee he'll be the only man in the history of American sport, the NBA, who will hit 2 half-court shots in the same series, let alone the finals. But he didn't play much at all. So he's the designated half-court shooter.
And Bob, as you like to say, and as we all know, there are the players like Pritchard's that have played for the Patriots, have played for the Bruins, have played for the Red Sox, that will never have to buy a drink in Boston.
Oh, no. It's not quite Dave Roberts level, but it's in that general umbrella. Yeah. I mean, he had an excellent year. He didn't play much in this series. Obviously, Joe thought there was a matchup thing or whatever. I always want him. I always want to see him. But anyway, he'll be able to tell the grandchildren a good tale or two about what he did in the finals in 2024. So it was a fantasy. I kept saying it. I was sitting with a gentleman after the game during the second half, and we were commiserating it. It was a fantasy. I kept saying, that this is what you dream of if you're a fan, a stressless clinching game, and so it was a great night to be there.
Jeff, have the Celtics made team basketball fashionable again?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy because think about this, guys. In mid-January of 2022, this was a 500 team that a lot of people, myself included, were like, I just don't think this is working, right? It's not working. Tatum and Jaylen. And then what did Brad Stevens do? He went out and traded for DerrickWhite, and Derrick wasn't great that second half. He was trying to figure himself out in this team and everything like that. And just think about in 2+ years, how many changes have been made, right? Obviously you had Ime Udoka then, and now you got Joe Mazzulla as a coach, right? You add DerrickWhite, and a lot of people viewed that trade as a disaster when White was struggling to make a shot in the postseason that year. Then obviously, you get Porzingis in this trade, and you get rid of a guy that, again, it had run its course with Marcus Smart. And then you go get JrueHoliday, who basically takes the place of Marcus Smart, and a guy you could trust to make good decisions. It all fell into place, Gary. And again, they are a team. I mean, again, is Jayson Tatum, you can poke holes in Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all this stuff, but they've got enough around them that it's not just about them like it is at Dallas. It's just about Luke and Kyrie. And if those guys don't play well, they have no chance. Where at the Celtics, if Tatum has a bad game or Jaylen Brown has a bad game or a bad half, they're fine because they have enough other pieces.
Bob, do they remind you of the Spurs?
Well, they're constructed different. Let's face it. They don't remind me of anybody. I mean, they really don't. They're the unique package, and partly because they got the 1-2 guys who complement it with an E and an I each other, all the time, and they got the backcourt is just extraordinary. I got to tell you, it's my favorite Celtic backcourt of all time for me. And I've been back. I'm not counting Kuzi and Sharman. I wasn't here for that, but I'm talking about since I showed up and started covering in 1969. My favorite backcourt. I'm not saying it's the best necessarily, although it probably is, but it's my favorite. These guys are just they just don't, they get it. So and they just get it as well as any player I've ever seen.
And every way, on the court, off the court, like it's amazing how those guys do not yearn for the limelight at all. And JrueHoliday, he was on a title team, and DerrickWhite's they're perfect for this team, for really any team. I mean, they really are.
They are. And so, I texted Brad about 10 days ago, and kiddingly, and I X'd this out, I said, if you were Catholic, you'd have to go to confession for stealing DerrickWhite from the Spurs. And he came back and said, and the thing is, he's even a better off the court. He said he's a better teammate and classy, guy. And I said, well, that makes two, right? You got two of them. I keep saying, every team in the league, every coach, every GM is probably saying, they got two. That's not fair. One of those guys would be one to a customer. They got two that are like this.
Well, I've heard this all year, guys. I've heard this from Celtics people in the organization all year, and they'll say, this is crazy because not only is this such a talented team, but they're the lowest maintenance group ever. There's no issues, high character. How often do you get that? Because again, on most of these teams, listen, I love Draymond, but he's not exactly, low maintenance, right? On all these championship teams, I feel like you've got a guy or two at least that is high maintenance to deal with. There is nobody on this Celtics team that is high maintenance. So Joe Mazzulla he had a great. I mean, he did. Now, he did a great job this year, but man, talk about a guy who inherited the ideal situation in a lot of ways. He did.
But he really did blossom. He really did the second year show us, he had learned some from the first year. I laugh every time he calls an appropriate timeout now. I just have to chuckle. And I mean, I was schooled at Masters and calling times out, and to see him do it the right way now is really fun. But no, he deserves a lot of credit, of course. It just I want to just go back how dominant this playoff, by the way, this playoff started, they lasted 67 days, by the way, guys, believe it or not, 67 days since April 14th. And they began with a 20-point win over Miami to start it off. And they ended up with a rousing, victory last night by 18. It could have been 30. And it's one of the dominant runs anyone ever had. They won 20-point victories, 4 of them, won by 30. Half of their victories were by 15 or more. 8 of their 16 victories were by 15 or more. Okay. That's, that speaks for itself about how much better they were, as it turns out, than everybody else. They answered all our questions. We all knew it wasn't about talent. We've been saying that here for 2 years. It's not about talent. It's about putting it together the right way, performing in the clutch, how you're going to play with 2 minutes to go and the score tied and all that, which they had not been good at. What are they going to nitpick now? There's nothing. There's no nit to pick, and there isn't right now. Now we can start with, can they repeat? Well, they've already started that, by the way, on television. Well, I don't want to go there. I want to celebrate.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that right now. I'm not worried about that because first of all, they got to stay healthy, and But anyway, this is one of the
But
great.
they're set up for it, Bob. Bob, the one thing is,
They are
teams that win titles, especially in this era right now, are not contractually set up to be able to repeat with their core. Brad Stevens has done a remarkable job, right? Not only, keeping Tatum and Brown, and obviously Tatum's going to sign an incredible contract. And he'll lock in DerrickWhite, I would assume. And you look at this team right now, and honestly, Horford will be gone. We know that at some point. It might be this year, next year, whatever it is. He's going to be gone. But they should have everybody. And by the way, almost everybody, other than JrueHoliday getting older, everybody's kind of in their prime.